You won't believe what happened when a Karen called 911 on me just because my pool was closed. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the twist that makes this story one for the books. My wife, without the Karen knowing, was actually the dispatcher, taking the call. Imagine the awkwardness, the tension, and all the chaos that followed. This isn't just another annoying neighbor story. It's a wild mix of unexpected drama, family ties, and the kind of confrontation you never see coming. It all started on a hot day when I decided to keep the pool closed for maintenance. I thought it was a simple, everyday decision. But apparently, not everyone agreed. One neighbor, who we'll call Karen, was so upset she felt the need to escalate things to the extreme, calling 911. What makes this situation even more unbelievable is that my wife works as a dispatcher for emergency calls. The same call she took was from the person upset about our pool. The moment she realized who was on the other end, things got intense and complicated in ways no one expected. You might be wondering how this mix-up could happen and what it meant for our family and the neighborhood. Was Karen just overreacting? Or was there something more behind her call? And how did my wife handle being caught between her job and our personal life? The whole situation quickly spiraled into a tense standoff full of awkward moments and surprises. Stay tuned, because in the next part, I'll share what happened when everything finally came to light. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds and the unexpected twist that left us all speechless. This is one pool drama you have to hear to believe, to understand how things got so tangled. You've got to know a little about our neighborhood and the people in it. It's usually a pretty quiet place where everyone respects each other's space. But there's always one or two neighbors who seem to push the limits, testing everyone's patience. Karen, well, she fits that description perfectly. She's the kind of person who expects things her way, no questions asked. When the pool was suddenly closed, it was like she saw a red dot. My wife has been working as a 911 dispatcher for years. It's a tough job. She hears all kinds of emergencies, stays calm under pressure, and helps people when they're at their worst. But nothing in her training prepared her for the moment she answered a call from someone she knew, someone angry about something so trivial, but blowing it way out of proportion. At first, she didn't realize it was Karen on the line. But the voice, the tone, once it clicked, her heart raced. She knew this wasn't going to be just another routine call. The call quickly revealed just how far Karen was willing to go over what should have been a simple community issue. What started as a complaint about the pool being closed turned into a demand for immediate action, as if it was some kind of emergency. My wife had to balance her professional role and the awkward personal reality. She had to stay neutral, calm, and professional, even though she wanted to protect me and defuse the situation without escalating it. Meanwhile, I had no idea this was happening. I was inside, dealing with my own frustration about the pool and what to say if Karen confronted me again. Little did I know the drama was unfolding in real time through my wife's headset. And the worst part, Karen didn't realize who she was talking to on the other end. The tension was building, but no one knew what would happen next. Would Karen find out? How would my wife handle the pressure? The whole neighborhood was about to get caught in the middle of something bigger than just a closed pool. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend. I'd finally made it out to my quiet lake cabin after weeks of work, just looking forward to some fishing, reading, and silence. But that peace shattered the moment to strangers in fake police uniforms. Knocked on my cabin door, they flashed badges that didn't look quite right, asked strange questions, and claimed there were complaints from the HOA. Only problem, I'm not even a member of the HOA. In fact, I'm the state-appointed oversight official for their HOA board. At first, I thought maybe it was just a mistake, wrong address, confused patrol, something simple. But the way they acted, pushy, evasive, overly confident, made my gut tighten. They weren't here for community safety. They were here for me. And I had a strong feeling the HOA had sent them, hoping I'd never question it. As I calmly questioned them back, their stories started falling apart. One claimed he'd been assigned to the lake region for years, but couldn't name the nearby road. The other kept glancing at his partner like he was waiting for a script. That's when I knew this wasn't about neighborhood rules or a noise complaint. This was something bigger. Why would the HOA risk everything by impersonating law enforcement? What were they trying to hide? And most importantly, why target me, the very person meant to hold them accountable? What happened next took a turn no one expected. Hidden cameras, secret meetings, and a twist that blew the lid off their entire operation. But before we get into that, let me take you back to the moment I uncovered their real motive and why. That quiet cabin weekend turned into a showdown I'll never forget. To understand how all this started, you need to know a bit about the HOA in question. It's a private association that oversees a cluster of vacation homes around the lake, the kind of place that markets itself as exclusive. But behind the scenes, things have been messy for a while. Complaints from residents were piling up about misused funds, selective enforcement, and shady board elections. That's when the state stepped in and assigned an independent oversight role. That role, me, they didn't know at first. I'd been quietly reviewing documents, making unannounced visits, and gathering information. My cabin sits just outside their official jurisdiction, but close enough for observation. I thought I was being subtle, just a neighbor with a clipboard. But someone must have figured it out. And instead of going through legal channels, they chose something more dramatic. That weekend was supposed to be off the books. I hadn't filed any new requests, hadn't contacted any residents. Yet these fake officers showed up like clockwork. Just a day after I received an anonymous tip in the mail. No return address, just a warning. Watch your back. The board knows. Now that might sound like paranoia, but everything started clicking. The way meeting minutes had been edited. Budget reports that didn't add up. Homeowners mysteriously backing out of interviews. There was pressure from somewhere. And now it was at my front door. The two men lingered outside longer than they should have, trying to get a look inside my cabin. They asked if I was renting illegally and said they had orders to inspect. When I asked for a warrant, one of them smiled like I'd just handed him a joke. That's when I started recording, just in case. And what I captured next revealed more than I expected. Through the lens of my phone camera, I caught something strange, a quick flash of a tattoo on one guy's wrist. Not a typical detail you'd see on real officers, especially when the badge he flashed earlier didn't match his uniform. When I asked again for ID and clarification on who sent them, they backed off, muttering something about needing to check with the board, and walked off toward a black SUV parked down the hill. No markings, no plates I could see. Just tinted windows and a cold silence as they drove off. That night, I couldn't shake it. I stayed up reviewing every file I'd collected from the HOA financial reports, violation notices, even the security camera logs from the gated entrance. One thing stood out. 3 board members had recently approved a large expense labeled security services. But there was no contract attached, just a payout, signed and rushed through in under 24 hours. The vendor name was fake. I cross-referenced it. Nothing came up, not even a shell company. Just a ghost entry. I decided to visit a couple homeowners. I trusted the next morning people who'd voiced concerns in the past. One of them, a retired teacher named Carla, looked shaken when I told her about the visit to my cabin. "You're not the first," she whispered. "They came to my place last month, said I was behind on dues. I've been fully paid for years." She showed me a notice that had an HOA letterhead, but the phone number was off by 1 digit. That's when it hit me. Someone inside the HOA was creating fake notices and assigning fake enforcement to scare people into silence. And whatever they were hiding, it had to be big enough to risk impersonating officers, but I still didn't know who was behind it or how far they'd go to keep me quiet. I knew I was getting close to something I wasn't supposed to see. The more I dug, the more tangled everything became. That fake security payment wasn't a one-time thing. I found at least 3 more over the last 6 months, all buried under vague descriptions like site monitoring or community protection. The totals added up to thousands, quietly drained from homeowner dues. No approvals, no records. Just silent withdrawals, rubber-stamped by a handful of familiar names. The board president, Mitz Lasker, had been especially hostile during previous inquiries, always dodging paperwork requests, blaming clerical delays, or acting like I was overstepping. He even once told me, half joking, "This place runs fine without oversight." Now it made sense. He wasn't resisting out of pride, he was covering tracks. The next weekend, I returned to my cabin. I didn't tell anyone. I turned off my phone's GPS, parked my car out of sight, brought along 2 hidden cameras, one facing the driveway and one inside near the front window. I wanted proof, and deep down, I knew they'd come back. Hours passed. Then, just after 2 a.m., the motion alert buzzed. Through the camera feed, I saw flashlights. 3 figures, not to this time. One stayed by the SUV, the other crept toward the side of the cabin, not the front door like before. One of them was holding something that looked like a crowbar. I didn't move. I just watched as they scoped out the windows, whispering to each other. They weren't here to talk. They weren't wearing uniforms this time. No badges, just hoodies, gloves, and silence. That wasn't a visit. That was a warning. And right then, I realized this was no longer just about HOA corruption or misuse of funds. It had crossed into something far darker, something personal, something dangerous. The next morning, I reviewed the camera footage frame by frame. The faces were mostly covered, but one of them slipped just for a second as he adjusted his hoodie near the porch light. The camera caught a partial face. I zoomed in, adjusted the contrast, and froze. It was someone I recognized, not from the board, but from a previous HOA meeting. A landscaping contractor they always used. Quiet guy, kept to himself. But now he was prowling around my cabin in the middle of the night with tools in hand. That should have been the smoking gun, but things took an even stranger turn that same day. I got a call, not from law enforcement, but from a private number. The voice on the line was calm, older, and direct. He didn't give a name. Jess said, "You need to stop looking into the budget transfers. You've already been warned once." Before I could respond, he hung up. The thing is, I never reported anything officially yet. No calls, no written reports. Just my notes, my footage, and a few quiet conversations. That meant someone had eyes on me. And not just random HOA suspicion, someone was watching closely enough to know what I was digging into. I went back into the payment logs. That's when I saw something I hadn't caught before. One of the so-called security service companies listed a billing address that matched a vacation property owned by a former HOA board treasurer, a man who had supposedly moved out of state after a heated scandal a year ago. But now it seemed like he never left. He'd just gone off the grid, at least on paper. Suddenly, the fake cops, the break-in attempt, the calls, they all pointed to something more than just HOA greed. This wasn't just about hiding theft. It felt like they were protecting someone, or something. And I was getting dangerously close to uncovering it.